To be present, we must be intentional, and to bear fruit, we must feed the soul. You're listening to Positive and Ponder. Three, two, one. Hello, Ponders. Welcome back to another episode of Positive and Ponder. Thank you so much for being here. As you can see, we are on Zoom, only because our guest is in another place in Canada, to be exact, in Toronto. But still, despite that, we will still have an excellent and an awesome episode for you today. We are going to continue with our series of Flourishing Together. But first, if anyone is new here, welcome. Positive and Ponder is a podcast where we talk about everything and anything in the aim to give you some encouragement, some hope, some inspiration, some perspective to learn and grow together. And so I'm super excited for this episode. Today, I have, we will call her throughout this episode, Ate Hazel. She is a content creator that I came across not too long ago, actually, and it's something, all her content is something that I deeply, deeply resonated with. And I think for a long time, I just haven't really had the opportunity to dig deep with the topics that we are talking about. I'll have her introduce herself more formally, but just the gist of what she does. She posts content most specifically for children or daughters of immigrant parents in the Filipino community, to be exact. And she talks about mental health, the importance of being vulnerable, of having conversations that may not be easy to talk about at the dinner table, but how that can lead us into a more intentional way of living, and living a more fulfilled life through that. But yeah, so thank you so much, Ate Hayes, for being here.
Hi, everyone. Well, thank you for having me. It's really an honor to meet you both and just be here and make more noise, right? So
Yes, for sure.
that's what we're doing.
Yes. And I was actually talking to a friend prior to this saying, I'm a bit nervous, but also I think it's also just a sense of excitement because, like, through what you've already been doing and what I aim to do as well is just to create conversations that are um groundbreaking, and it's not easy. It takes a lot of effort and energy and time and a lot of our emotions to talk about stuff like this. But I know that whatever we talk about today, I'm just hoping that someone will be encouraged and hopefully someone will gain perspective. Will we all agree? No. But I think we can all have some type of middle ground and some type of healing throughout this conversation. So, yeah, so Ate Hayes, could you please, for those who don't know you, just share a little bit about you?
Sure. So, my name is Hazel, and I am a content creator, like Pauline said. And basically, I create videos to support cycle breakers who are looking into a way to express themselves and also practice self-compassion at the same time. And just chiming in on what you said in the beginning, not all of our conversations are going to be comfortable, but they will be groundbreaking. And the only way to grow something is to break ground and keep watering it. So that's what I hope that we can inspire with this conversation.
Yes. And could you please, I know that from your content, you have the iconic Tita Seleng. Could you please actually just, you can even start from the moment you were inspired to even post something. I don't think I've scrolled that far to see your first video and what inspired this, but could you please take us back of how this all started?
Yes, so actually it's been I think Tita Siling has been 2 years in the making, before I even felt like it was okay to take space. That was the I think that was the thing that I needed to have, is the confidence to take her out on a spin, right? Because um basically how I came up with her is like very last minute. But I knew what I wanted to do with the character, which is voice out exactly how I felt. So basically, I like supporting cycle breakers with their self expression because I felt like I was stifled when I was young, all throughout childhood and adulthood, when it comes to my self expression.
Mm.
So, Tita Siling is a way to work through that and being okay with being uncomfortable and sitting with that discomfort to find out, how do I grow from here? How do I, and I make that sound very like, ooh, pop psychology and like
Yes.
growing and healing and everything. But it has so much truth in that. I feel like nowadays it's like you hear that everywhere, but some things that you hear everywhere have like a basis of truth,
Mm.
right? And so Tita Siling is Tita Siling because, first of all, my grandma used to call me Haselina. So it's like Hazel, like I took away the Selena, right?
Yeah.
And then a very common thing that we do with names is put an ing in the end. So then I was like, okay, well, Siling. And then also ceiling to healing, there is no ceiling to healing. So that is the reason why it's Tita Siling. So yeah, and also All About Haze, by the way, just because I'm already talking about names, All About Haze wasn't supposed to be like all about me. It's all about the haze that we all go through, and are kind of figuring out our way through. So that's the the core of that. Also, I thought it would have been, I thought it would be funny if I used an accent and make it into like a, because it's entertaining, right? And it catches attention. And I feel like she's a tita, so she should have an accent. And she works in a call center because she's Filipino. And there's a lot of us in the Philippines, of our people in the Philippines that work in call centers. So I was like, that's perfect. But
Mm.
the last part of that, like her image, was a very much like last minute thing. And I think my first post was November of last year. And yeah, and then the rest is history.
When did you see kind of attention being drawn to, or, the responses? What was that like? Seeing like, oh, people are actually checking this out, and I'm
It was,
viral. I'm
oh,
viral here.
yeah, it was so interesting
Yeah.
because I hadn't, like, I was thinking about her for so long, and I was stopping myself because, you know, I'm thinking, oh, who am I to be talking about this? I'm not whatever this person educated about mental health or whatever, but I have lived experience. And now I think that's what I'm kind of um, leaning more into,
Mm.
is that I have the lived experience, and sometimes lived experience can have as much insight as someone who studied something.
Mm.
So yeah, but I stopped myself for a very long time before then. So then when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's a lot of people can relate to this. And honestly, that has been my fuel ever since then. Especially with the things like you said, the Mother's Day thing, is when more people are can relate to it. That's what I talk about more.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think it's genius that you kind of speak in a tita perspective, because I think what hinders, healthy conversations, and it's unfortunate, but of course, with what we try to do today and trying to break cycles, sometimes there's a hindrance in where the titas, or, our elders, I think that we are attacking them and that we don't
Yeah.
see them. But we really try our best too. And I think, they will react in offense first. But I think you being in their perspective, kind of fitting their shoes, also gives them, the kind of the confirmation, the affirmation that, oh, well, maybe she does understand where I am coming from. I don't have the words to say, so I'm glad you, someone who is younger than me, can do that for me. So I think it's genius of what you do.
Thank you so much. Yeah, well, I my thinking of that, and I think that you captured it very well. I think that Tita Siling can be a bridge to the older generation and the new generation, because really the reason why I started Tita Siling, one of the other reasons why, is because I'm so annoyed of seeing toxic Filipino culture be
Yeah.
the number one thing trending on TikTok about Filipinos. And
Right.
honestly, that is not that's not all we are, you
Yes.
know. And I know I'm getting so riled up, like I'm literally having goosebumps right
I'm
now.
ready. I've
No,
been ready for so long then.
well, that's really what it is. And I'm just like, I know our culture so differently. We have such hardworking people. We are a country of people who are hospitable. We are known for being the best caregivers, and I'm not just saying like as a as a job. It's like even in hospitality, even with just, how we have so many OFWs who care. Like that is like our number one thing is caring about people.
Mhm.
So how is it that how we view ourselves is toxic? Like what ideologies do we conform to that makes us look at ourselves that way? That's, if you ask me, that is a big red flag for self-hate,
Mm.
right? Like if you're
Yes.
looking at yourself and you're looking at other people, and this is also prevalent with us, is the comparison, so it's like how are you putting two and two together, and how is the biggest thing on TikTok about us like toxic culture or toxic Filipino culture?
Mm.
And Tita Siling, her only job is to dissect why,
Mhm.
and what are the things that we are doing that makes our culture be seen as toxic,
Mhm.
because there's more to us than that.
Absolutely.
And why are we toxic?
Right. Right. No, very, very, very true. I didn't think about it like that. Because we do, I feel like we have a great, we always have such a big stage when it comes to even American like television with, the Miss Philippines and seeing all of these workers coming from the Philippines working here, there's great highlights in that. And you were right. We are very hardworking and very hospitable and very caring. But it's sometimes I feel like our own people go against each other too. You know what I mean? And I agree with the comparison thing. I've seen it, I've witnessed it, how even of our own kind will go against each other. And it does come and derive from, trauma in the past and these cycles continuing of constant comparison, constant, self-hate, constant, not being able to express how we feel, in a healthy way. And yeah, wow, I never thought about it like that. But I do constantly, and we can dig deep, I guess, now that we're here. And I didn't really put it in our notes of the specific topics because I wanted to see from your perspective and for your own experience. And I know you're already very vulnerable on your Instagram, but were there any particular experiences, which I'm sure you have a lot of, or topics that you felt like you needed to talk about because you had experienced it so bad? One out of 50. Feel free. I mean,
Ha. Well,
I think, I guess to start, because there's so many, but I think since I'm here and curious, as someone, I'm 23 and I am, um, the second youngest out of 9 kids, but I'm technically the oldest because I was first born here in the US, and all of my siblings, older siblings, are in the Philippines. So you already know, with that comes a lot of pressure. With that comes a lot of expectation. A lot of the pressure goes on the eldest, and most especially when you are the daughter. And I saw that you are also you are the eldest. I think that's what it said in your bio. So what
Yes.
was your experience with that? You can say the good and the bad. I know there's a lot. I'm just waiting for you to share it to know we're on the same page.
Um, yes. I'm like, let me clear my throat.
Yeah.
Um, there is immense pressure. And I think we all handle pressure differently. I think for me, earlier on, however my experience was through childhood, it was easy for me to think about what I want, what I wanted, right? Instead of what was being told to me. There was always something that made me think about why is this way? Why is this that way? Just to give you a couple of examples, uh I remember that my parents, when we were young, they would work a lot, right? And I have two other sisters, right? And as an older sister, I think it's not necessarily pressure. Uh well, no, I'm lying. It is. Because if you're alone with your sisters, even at like 7 years old,
Yep.
however old you are, you feel that pressure, right? So that's one, definitely, that you're responsible for your brothers and sisters or siblings, right? And so I remember that at some point when I was 7, 8, 9, whatever age, I was this young when I asked my parents, why are you never home? Why are you never home? Why do you go to church instead of coming home? Why do you never have time for us? Right? So that was definitely one thing that made me think there are things that I would not do as an adult. Not that I'm saying that I can do better as one, but I felt the, I understood how difficult it was for me to feel like I was not being guided, to
Mm,
feel that guidance to my parents felt like overprotectiveness and not letting me go outside, not letting me do this or that. The guidance never came through as affection with guidance. It came through like not necessarily aggression, but toughness, firmness, and that I think was the start of me thinking, I think I'm only experiencing resentment and disconnection from my parents. And this is not what a child should be feeling. And
mm,
so emotionally, that caused me to be very close with my sisters and really watch how they felt, how like, and be there for them emotionally.
mm.
Um,
And did
and
you feel like, sorry to interrupt, but did you
no,
feel like you had to be there for your sisters because these emotional needs were not met, these physical being there, availability that wasn't there?
yeah, definitely. Because if I couldn't have that, my sisters have to have that in some way.
Yes.
And it just got harder when I was 10, and then I was all of a sudden like free to roam, do whatever I want. I was still in the Philippines at this time, and my
Okay.
sisters were just much too young. Like they were 7 years old, and it's like I was already 10, and like that's still not old enough, but like I was able to go out with like friends or something as long as there's a chaperone. And so it created a resentment with them as if I was leaving them, but I shouldn't have felt that at such a young age. I'm not their mom.
Mm,
I'm not their parent. So for me, I started thinking about that. I'm like, why am I actually, I thought about it before, and I felt like there was something wrong with that thinking, where it's like, why do I feel like I'm the one responsible? Right? But only recently have I really sat with that feeling and understood that that was what I was feeling then, is that I wish my parents were home. I wish my parents were there more for me, and my sisters, because I didn't know how to handle them either, because I didn't know, like, nobody handled me. Nobody
mhm,
handled my big
mhm,
emotions. Nobody knew how to help me with that. Um, and so I didn't know how to help me with that for a very long time.
mm.
Um, and as I learned, I helped myself and I helped my sisters. And I hope whatever help I gave them, you know, gave them some sort of a feeling of being fulfilled in that aspect of their life. But I don't know. Um, yeah. So
Yeah. Well, thank you for
yeah.
sharing that. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I can totally resonate. I had to take care of my younger brother too while my mom is a single mom, also. So that was especially hard. And for our audience members, this is not an episode to, dishonor our families or
Yes.
make them bad.
Oh, I love that you said that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
You go
no, we should have
ahead.
started with that first. They're like already turning it off. No, we are talking about this because it is real life, and it's not until we open up about how we feel and then talk about our experience of, after that, responding to that and where we are now. That is what's really important. I didn't really realize that I did have a resentment towards my mom till like not too long ago. Maybe when I was like 18, 19, 20, because I had been stuck in obedience mode for so long, which eventually, if we were to go deep, led to codependency and being um a people pleaser and wanting to keep the peace because there was so much, chaos. And then it wasn't until I got older and I learned how to, and I told my mom this, and my mom and I are getting closer as I get older, which I'm very grateful for. But I opened up to her and just saying, no offense, mom, but I didn't learn how to say sorry from you. I didn't learn how to express how I felt through you. And I just felt like I had to be vulnerable for that. And I was like already tensing up, like flinching if she was gonna say something to me or do something. And she's like, oh my gosh. But I think at the same time, I think she wanted me to admit that because there was no way for her to do that because she didn't have the words to say, she didn't know how to. And so I thank God that I've although it was tough where I had to really dig deep and I became such an empathetic person where I literally had to continue to worry about my family for so long. It's not until recently where I've like finally let go, not caring about them, but having that sense of separation. I think that's another thing that our culture can do where we will feel pressured for just leaving, right? It's such a cultural thing where we can't leave until we get married, right? And although there are some benefits to that, we have such a great community, there's always someone to turn to, but you then have that codependency, you then have that guilt. Even just leaving for a travel, I'll feel guilty sometimes. And these are just the things, the consequences of not being taught how to express how we feel and always feeling ashamed for feeling how we feel. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it also doesn't help that we are also shamed for feeling how we feel.
Yes.
And I think that it's important to talk a little bit also about just me saying it out loud, where there is room for figuring out your feelings and how you felt before, and sitting with them and doing all the work that you're doing, and also at the same time feeling and understanding that your parents did the best they could.
Yes.
And there is also room for working through the resentment that you felt, because it's multiple facets. It's not just one or the other. And I think that that's the reason why the hotline is so open ended. Like it's like there's this response and there's this response. You can be mild or spicy. We all know that you'll get, palo anyway, either way. But you know what I mean? Like you might get some eyebrows raised either way. But it's just important for you to get that out and to feel seen and feel validated, that you can feel that way. Not that other people have this the say to validate your feelings, but it's you getting to validate yourself, that that's okay to feel that way, and you're working through something. And it's not just, if I say something about my mom or my dad or whatever, how my family was, or any relative, that doesn't mean that I don't love them. It just means that this is my truth and I need to say something about it, because we're not going against an individual. We are going against an entire, like, how long has it been since we were colonized by the like
Exactly.
it's a long time that you are going through all of this and figuring it out. And if you do it, the people in the future that will come through you and your ancestors,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you're healing a whole line of people, because you're expressing what they weren't able to express before. And the reason why we have so many things that, like our parents are just being protective, and then it's like you have to do exactly as they say and all of that, that also I'm sure is history has something to do with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just important to go through whatever it is in the present that we can do for ourselves, because it starts with us.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is that's going to happen from here on out is going to be the thing that might be repeated in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I'm actually a youth leader, so I mentor a lot of youth. And I feel like that's just a big part of my calling. I'm with children and youth all the time. And I'm not surprised because, usually people who work with kids, work with the youth is because they desire to see them grow and want them to reach their full potential, especially if you come from a place where it was a little bit difficult to discover that and to be you and stuff like that. And so, um, it's tough because while I'm also handling this youth, I'm also mentoring the kids of parents, and so I was really like, for one of my teachings, parents were present, and I was just I felt called to just say this because who else would? And it was talking about the whole theme was about family and relationships and how we can build stronger relationships. And I said, and it's all Filipino American community, and I said, um, just hear me out, the one thing that lacks within our community is accountability. Your kids are a byproduct of your accomplishments, but also your mistakes. And that's okay. Like, I had to make sure I emphasize, and that's okay before people like
I'm
walk out.
like, oh my gosh, Pauline,
Yeah.
what? Oh, you called them out. I
I
love
did.
that.
I had to.
You
And my mom
called them
was there
out.
too. Yeah. And okay, it was at my church. So that makes it even easier. But I really did feel called to because, you know, we all make mistakes and our parents will tell us all the time, don't be with that boy because this and this and this and this happened. And I know, mom, you told me that 10 times, right?
Yes.
you
Yes.
know and then there are things that they don't want to share with us, and it's just taking accountability, I think, is so important because I'd rather be wrong and be open to knowing that I'm wrong than denying and being in denial that I am wrong. If we desire to see our children, our youth, to be honest individuals, to be honest with how they feel, to be honest with others and not be judgmental, like, it starts with us. That's why I firmly agree with you. And and working alongside you with breaking these cycles because as hard as it is, it takes a lot of effort and stuff out of us. And, as much as it's really hard to be in that position, to be the one carrying and being the trailblazers, it's also a great honor. And so I guess like we can um talk more about, okay, so I'm assuming that you've had these tough conversations with family members and your parents. So what is that like for someone who desires to have these conversations with their parents, with their elders? How can we create or start, this whole exchange that's so new to us?
Well, first of all, I want to say, like, I have nothing else to do here. You have, like, that calling them out is just absolutely like chef's kiss. Like, that's great.
I was
You
like
know?
looking at their faces like, eh.
Oh, I would have paid $1 million to be in that room, yo. Um, um, but with your question, I think there is a spectrum of different ways. And I feel like depending on your parents and how open they are, and really also how safe they feel,
Mm,
um, it's tough. That's all I'm gonna say about my experience with that. I
mhm,
think that my way of doing things are very much I say what I want to say. And if I can't say what I want to say, and we're not, and I don't think I'm being heard, it's hard for me to keep going.
mm,
And this is me saying this, not feeling heard from the age of when did I tell you I told them, why aren't you here at home?
7.
Right? All the way up to now.
Mm-hmm.
So, how many years have I tried?
Mm,
Right? And I feel like I keep having to go through that with them because I don't want to give up, but I'm also tired. Right? And I know that a lot of us feel that way, but I want to offer another perspective. Right? With the parents that are and elders that are having such a difficult time with anything that has to do with maybe there was something that they could have done wrong in your childhood, or like you say, right, like you pass on your achievements to your children, but you also pass on your mistakes, right? And so these mistakes, anything that questions somebody and they feel like, ooh, I'm not safe. Like maybe I could have done something wrong, but they don't want to talk about that
mm,
and they can't handle talking about that. That I think 100% is the reason why there's such a block with our elders,
mm-hmm.
is because they don't feel safe with that question. They don't
Wow.
feel safe with that perspective. They don't feel safe about you talking about that because what? Like, did I do something wrong? Did I raise you wrong? But that's not what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
That's the number one thing. Like our message is not to point fingers,
Yes.
and there are people who will, there are people who, like they already know that their parents are not comfortable with it, and you know what I mean, let me get it through you. And at some point I was that person. At some point I was like, you know what, I'm gonna keep throwing
Mm,
and see if something bounces back, right, and see if they're gonna pick it up what I throw at them. And sometime and more often than not it doesn't happen. Why? Because you know, we hear it in our culture. Oh, your mom is too old. What do you think she's gonna do? She's gonna change at 65 years old or whatever. My mom's not 65, but
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like just whatever, your grandma or whatever elder. They make excuses for themselves.
Wow. Yep.
And then we take that on and then we make excuses for them.
Yeah.
But really, the only thing is, and the sad thing is, we have an ancestral lining of people not feeling safe about dealing with difficult conversations.
Mhm.
Like that's it. Like however you feel within yourself, the struggle of you feeling safe, imagine that burden one time removed, and look at your mom.
Mm. Yeah.
And think about how much vulnerability you have already had to do to have in order for you to hold this container and space for yourself, you know. And then think about how your mom could have handled that when she was young. That's the reason why we're not getting through them, folks. It's hard to talk about.
True.
And there's the only thing we can do is start with ourselves. That's why it has to start with us, because if we're not going to do it, they're not going to be able to do it anymore.
Yes.
It's ingrained in our brain that people who are older than us don't change. You
Yeah,
know, like that's our culture. It's everywhere.
for sure. Yeah.
So definitely that.
Oh, absolutely. And I totally resonate when you said you're tired. Like, just that, just that, just highlight that. It is tiring, especially for me who had to also mature at such a young age. And like already at this point, like, can I just be like 30 and have my life figured out and just have a family and just skip all of that part, right? All of the dramatic parts. But, of course, that can't happen. But one thing that I have learned, because I've if there's anything that has helped me grow is through the relationships I have with others. And so I've learned so much through just my relationship with my mom. And it was a process for me to accept and to learn and to gain more empathy, knowing that her having me here as her first child here in the US, she was learning to be a mom and so many other things, being an American and being this and this and this and that. She had to leave all of her kids in the Philippines and barely raise them. And I'm very fortunate to know that she's raised me since birth, and she was not able to do that. And so from her, just like hearing, when you go to like a family friend's house and you just overhear them talking about their life, talking about their past, how they got here. I do cherish those moments because those were my only those that was the only chance for me to understand her story. Because it's hard to have one-on-ones with them. And so it was not until I sat in front of her or had the opportunity to talk to her and be like, "Mom, I know you went through this and I'm sure that was really hard." And it is about just being heard, you know? Um, and so yeah, yeah, it's just about being heard. And like you said, through generational trauma, all of that is just, it will always follow until we decide to stop. And like I said earlier, I was the one who had to learn how to say sorry in behalf of, you know, everything. Learn how to apologize, learn how to hear people out and understand. And yeah, it's tiring, but I know that with good intention and especially out of love, I feel like that's where we forget that it can come from anger, it can come from resentment towards our loved ones, and it's valid to feel that way. But if it's driven by love and driven by, seeing a brighter future for your younger generation, for your kids, then it's definitely worth it.
Yes. And I also feel like us going through the motions of just getting to know all these hard things that have happened, and you said something about like empathizing, and that's very important. And even through resentment, you could also figure things out with love.
Mm-hmm.
with love in mind. You can have your feelings about it, but you could also work from that angle into finding empathy and kindness and love for your parents or for anybody else, right? As for me, it's definitely my entire thing came from resentment, and I'm not going to be, I'm going to be vulnerable enough to say that too, because there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that, especially feeling alone, feeling stifled, like all of these feelings that come with it. But when I look back, and I think I had this realization lately, you know our parents are also cycle breakers.
Mm-hmm.
We're not the only ones. Like, you're not
For
special.
sure.
Your
Yes.
parents have broken cycles by themselves, heavy cycles.
Yeah.
Like my mom, she was able to help so many of her siblings come through to Manila from a province
Mm-hmm.
and then go into places like Taiwan and Japan. Like, they were able to break cycles of poverty, and with my dad, he was able to break cycles of aggressive, toxic masculines.
Mm.
And like, no one is ever going to be perfect, I think. And even through generations, we are just a work of in progress,
As we
and
are a work of progress ourselves. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so if you look at your parents and all you have is resentment for them, there's room for that, sure. But I think for me personally, I'm a person, I feel like I'm just a big ball of love, right? Like, I just feel like for me, service has always been big for me. And that's a good thing that I got from my parents. They served the church. Like, I did a lot of things because of that, that helped other people, and that, you know, gave space for uh positive things for other people. And all of the stuff, the trauma, the things that I got from them, mistakes, achievements, everything, they're my superpower.
Mm.
That is the thing that sets me apart in the world. I have, like, the thing that I was talking about, because there were two things that I posted on Mother's Day, if you didn't see that.
Yeah, I
uh,
saw.
but if you did, like, we take the best parts. Like, I feel like every single one of us has this, our mom and our dad's rap sheet. Like, where did they go right? Where did they go wrong? Right? Or what can we change? What can we improve? And I feel like the work is really figuring out what you're going to be as a person, who you are going to be as a person, with the amalgamation of the good characteristics and the bad characteristics
Yeah.
of whatever you got from before,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you create yourself through that. Like, I see my mom's, childlike wonder in me, and I remember her every time, like, I'm happy just gardening, like seeing my plants sprout. And, that's like the thing that my mom has, that everything is like, oh my God, that's so, she's very excitable,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see myself in my dad's heart, and how for him, it's very important to be a good Christian. And in that way, I also, regardless of how my views are, I want to be a good person. So for him, being a good Christian is being a good person. And so I have some stuff that I took from him also that I follow to this day,
Mm-hmm.
that I don't know, I speak a certain way, or I hold space for people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's part of who my dad is, and so yeah, like I feel like regardless of how you feel about your family, some things are gonna drip, you know what I'm saying?
For sure. For sure. Absolutely. And yeah, I definitely saw that, even especially on Mother's Day. And every time I celebrate Mother's Day with my mom, it's always very interesting. But I'm just so grateful for um I'll just give a quick of what happened on Mother's Day. Like we decided to, before I got our nails done together, we went to the Filipino store. And I was like, okay, maybe we can get, halo halo or something. She's like, okay, yeah, maybe I can chica chica with someone. And I was like, oh, do you know people there? She's like, no. I was like, okay. And I just looked at her in wonder, and I was like, we are not that much different. You know what I mean? And I was just super grateful to just witness the good parts of my mom. And there's a lot of good parts about my mom. And that's why, while we allow space for anger and resentment, the only way for us to see light and to use it in a purposeful way is to be driven by love. And one thing that has helped me, because I know through all of this, what we discussed, there's a lot, it's difficult for us to separate and to have individuality.
Yes.
So we will always associate ourselves with our parents, our family, our career, all of this. But it's not until we have a sense of individuality and have that space where we can really grow and use our past experiences for good. And so it was a long journey for me, but through every trial, I've learned that the only effective way, and not just effective in changing the person, because that was my that was my assumption that I could change people. And that made it so difficult. Like that made it so much more stressful, thinking that I could change my family, because I had this, we have all of these what is the word? Like the perfect ideal family, like in our head, and what we see, what I saw at school with my friends' parents, that's what I had in my head. But that's just not how it is. And that's okay. But
Yeah.
it's if we force it to be a certain way, we are not helping it at all. So what I've learned, for anyone who's listening, that's just still trying to find light in their situation, is our responsibility, especially as children of our parents, is we can only set an example. My wrong was thinking I had to parent my mom, and that made it so difficult. And I was like, no, the best thing is to just be an example. It's gonna take years. There's not just the one instant where boom, like you have the perfect family. It's through living it. Like in order for us to even just have a platform like we do, have my podcast, have your postings, your content, like it would all be meaningless if we ourselves didn't even follow it, if we ourselves didn't even believe it for ourselves. And I feel like that is where everything manifests, when it truly comes from, the heart. So, yeah, like I said, be the example to your parents, be the teacher. That's the word, be the teacher rather than their parent.
Yes. Well, in a way too, that's kind of how you parent. There
Sure.
is no way to parent, but
Yeah.
it's like, you know, that's also why I'm like, when we do something, like it can start with you forward and backward,
Mm,
right? And I feel like just with me and my mom, uh, for her, I feel like at some point she needed some hobbies, right? Because, sometimes you get so lost in life that you could forget yourself, and being a mom, having to have moved from the Philippines to here, having to really be busy since the time that they moved all the way up to even now, and just worried about money and all of the things that come with migrating, like, coming from the Philippines to here. And that's another cycle, right? But I feel like there's the opportunity to break the cycle or talk or is in communication and is in opening up spaces, even though in the beginning it hurts, even though in the beginning, like it is coming from, and I keep going back. I love that you're saying light, 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 and I'm saying resentment, 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 because both, it can come from both all the time. And it's kind of like this ball that we're trying to break from each side, you know what I mean? And it's like, just visually, like it's kind of like that. Like we're trying to, there's this solid thing that we're trying to break, literally groundbreaking, literally breaking like a heart of stone, or you know what I mean, something that
Mhm.
has been calcified for so long, and that we're only little by little digging at now.
Mhm.
So, you know, and there's room for everybody. There's room for, our parents. There's room for us understanding each other. Um, it really just takes a lot of grunt work to do it. And I have my own way of doing things, and other people might have different ways of doing things, and maybe different families have different dynamics. But I think all we all want is a cordial family relationship
Mhm.
where you feel seen and you feel heard and you feel loved, and really, as much struggle as there is in every single family, as long as everybody looks at it like, I love you more than I want to be right,
Mm.
I
Mhm.
think that's where it lies, and both parties have to feel this way, or at least have a little bit of leeway to have that conversation, you know?
Yes.
Um, and I understand how hard it is. I do. I do. And I understand how draining and how tiring, but you love them, right?
Mhm.
So it's up to you when to stop, or it's up to you how long you're willing to go for, how long that you're doing that for, you know?
Yes, for sure.
So, yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Ate Hazel. I like hate that we're ending now, but I'm sure if the opportunity comes, I'd love to have another discussion, maybe even person. Like I feel like from this conversation, it's just like I feel like we just need a like an embrace right now, and to
Yeah.
all of the other daughters out there and all the other kids that are going through the same thing. But one thing I'd like to add, kind of to close out, is it's what I've been asking all of my past guests for this Flourishing Together series, which is Rosebud and Thorn. I don't know if you heard about it, but for those who don't know about it, Rose is something that you're grateful for. Um, Bud is for something that you're looking forward to. And then Thorn is something that you want to work on. So you can go in whatever particular order you'd like, but
Can you guide me on each one?
yes, you
I'm
can
like,
do.
I don't know if I remember everyone.
We'll start with gratitude. We like to start on gratitude. So,
Okay.
a rose, what is something that you're grateful for? And it can be
Something,
in terms, it can follow what we talked about today, or it could follow anything in general in your life.
I am grateful for, whew, my sense of safety and ease that I feel right now. It took a lot of work to get there, but I'm grateful for it.
Mm, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, absolutely. And I've just met you, but I can already feel like that it's been a long time, that you've been wanting to feel this peace. We all want and desire that peace. And I'm so grateful for, where you are now, and how many people that you're also impacting through not just your content but your spirit, and I know that it's gonna break cycles even just in our direct communities. So that I'm great, I'm happy for you. And then we'll do Thorn. What is something that you like to work on?
What I'd like to work on, well, I'm working on it now.
Mhm.
Um, For me, it's my negative self beliefs and my limiting beliefs and my not being able to rest sometimes and
Hmm.
prioritize me.
Yeah,
So yeah, lots of going within right now is happening.
for
So
sure. For
yeah.
sure. Well, at least you are aware of that. So that's very
Yes.
good.
Yes.
And then the last one is Bud, which is something that you are looking forward to.
I am looking forward to releasing all my ways to support my cycle breakers. I
Mm.
am working on so many projects right now,
Please write
but
a book, by the way. I forgot to say that in the beginning. You're a great writer. Like, I take time to read your captions, by the way. You're just, yeah, your
I'm
captions.
like,
You're,
oh, thank you.
yeah. I was like, she is an author. Where's the book?
Thank you. I'm like, I thought about it,
Yes.
but I'm not sure just yet. I feel like I'm more of a performer than I am a writer, but
Mm,
I do like a lot of art. So it's
yeah,
like I'm kind of artistic in different ways, I guess.
I feel that.
Um, but yeah, I mean, if you could help me with a book, why not, right?
Yeah, for sure. Sorry to interrupt. Something you're looking forward to.
Yes, so it's something I'm looking forward to. Yes, is releasing. We have there is a project that I'm working on that we'll have affirmation decks, a journal, that's coming out. Yes, and I also have merch coming out soon. And I think that this is going to be an interesting one because it is specifically, you know how I do, right? Like Tita Siling, what she talks about. So it's going to be really honing on Philam voices,
Mm,
I think. And I think that this is special because a lot of the clothing line that I've seen so far are very much like very Filipino centric only, I feel.
Pinoy
And
pride.
I feel
Yeah.
like there is more room to do more of like diaspora uh type of designs, or so yes, but it's basically merch that will talk to you
Mm.
or create
Well,
conversations. That's it.
well, I'm going to say for that because I am going to buy almost everything.
I'm so excited, honestly. Like if I could just show you right now, I would, but
Yeah,
I want to
sure.
just here you go, guys.
Absolutely. Oh, that is so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much, Ate Hazel, for being here and taking the time to talk to my audience. I'm sure a lot of people got something from what you have expressed, even if you may not relate to all of it. I'm sure there's one part of it that you may resonate with. And again, to anyone who's following or listening, I'm sure I'm going to have a wide group of age within this episode alone, but I just want to express my love and share my love to everybody, and to just remind you that everyone um just desires to be seen and heard, and that can be starting with us, expressing that and allowing these the space for these people. We are not perfect beings by all means, but with intentional decisions and just being intentional with our relationships, we can break cycles, and we can create an atmosphere of peace. And yeah, I'm just super grateful. And also, this is an episode dedicated to all our Asian Americans and our Pacific Islanders. We are
Yes.
very proud Filipinos. I love being Filipino. That's another topic in itself, just the identity of being Filipino and American, which maybe we'll leave space for that in the future. But thank you guys so much for being here and allowing us to have space to talk to you guys, to be in your headspace. And if you enjoy content like this, please don't forget to subscribe to Positive and Ponder. We have all of our updates, anything that you need to know on our Instagram at pause.sip.ponder. Thank you, Mary Rose, for being our sound person today. And yeah, that's it. We'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to always love, to always be curious, and to always ponder. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you so much. And remember that you're not alone.
Yes.